Threatening calls came to Grant Fuhr's home. His coaches knew something. Teammates noticed. Reporters asked questions. The NHL looked the other way. 5 Stanley Cups made it easy. Then, in 1990, they suspended him for a year.
He is suspended after admitting that he used
And the reason why will make you question everything about that dynasty. Grant Fuhr won 5 Stanley Cups with the Edmonton Oilers between 1984 and 1990, backstopped Canada to a 1987 Canada Cup victory, and earned the Vezina Trophy in 1988 as the league's best goaltender. On September 27, 1990, NHL President John Ziegler suspended him for a year without pay after Fuhr admitted to using substances for approximately 6 to 7 years. The timeline meant one thing. He was using during the entire dynasty run from 1983 or 1984 straight through the summer of 1989. Every championship, every All-Star appearance, every clutch playoff save. The question that followed wasn't just about Fuhr. It was about what those championships actually meant. If the greatest goaltender of his generation was fighting this battle in private while delivering on the biggest stages, then the story of the Edmonton dynasty needed re-examination. This wasn't about an athlete who lost his way after success faded. We finally know what that success required. Edmonton didn't play hockey the way other teams did. The 1983-84 Oilers scored 446 goals in a single season, still an NHL record, averaging 5.58 goals per game. Their defensemen weren't actually defenders. Paul Coffey took over 300 shots some seasons. The team's philosophy was simple: outscore the opposition. If that meant giving up 4 or 5 goals, so be it. They created an impossible situation for whoever played in the net. Most goalies in the league faced 25 to 30 shots per game. Fuhr regularly saw 40 or more. Most goalies played behind structured defensive systems that protected the crease. Fuhr played behind a team that treated defense as a suggestion. The mental toll of that system broke traditional goaltenders. When a goalie gives up an early goal, the standard response involves tightening up, playing more conservatively, and dwelling on what went wrong. The Oilers couldn't afford that. They needed someone who could let in a goal that would destroy most goalies mentally, then make a game-saving stop 30 seconds later like the first one never happened. No emotional hangover, no tightening up, just instant amnesia and the next shot. Substance use creates exactly that kind of distance. It teaches the brain to compartmentalize, to function through discomfort without processing it. For someone playing in Edmonton's system, that psychological profile wasn't a hindrance. It was accidentally perfect. December 11th, 1985. Edmonton versus Chicago. Final score, 12-9. Fuhr gave up 9 goals and won. Think about that. 9 goals against. In any other system, that's a career-ending performance. In Edmonton, it was just another Tuesday. The game still holds the NHL record for combined goals. In another game during that era, Fuhr surrendered an early goal that would have rattled most goaltenders into a defensive shell. Instead, he immediately made a breakaway save, threw the puck up ice to Gretzky in one motion, and watched Edmonton go the other way and score. Final, 8-5. A traditional goaltender with a traditional mindset would have been pulled after the 4th goal against, or mentally collapsed trying to protect a lead that never existed. Fuhr just kept playing the next shot. The Oilers didn't need someone who stopped everything. They needed someone who could survive anything. And for 7 years, nobody asked why he was so good at that. Not the Oilers, not the media, not the league. 1983-84, the first confrontation. Glenn Sather confronted Fuhr about possible substance use as early as the dynasty's beginning. In a later interview, Sather recalled the conversation directly. I said to him, "I've got all kinds of reasons to believe you are doing it." Fuhr denied everything. Sather had enough information to act. He chose to keep watching instead. 1986, the article nobody investigated. Sports Illustrated published allegations that 5 or more Oilers had substance abuse issues. The piece included specific details, corroborated sources, and evidence that couldn't be easily dismissed. Sather called it irresponsible. The league backed him. NHL President John Ziegler criticized the article for McCarthyist tactics rather than launching any investigation. The league's priority was clear: protect the image, preserve the narrative, and don't create problems that didn't need to exist publicly. Nothing was investigated. 1988. The playoffs everyone pretended not to see. During the 1988 playoffs, reporters noted that Fuhr appeared physically compromised in post-game interviews. His pupils were dilated, his speech was slurred. The hockey media, protective of the sport's biggest stars and the most compelling storyline, attributed everything to exhaustion from the playoff grind. The Oilers were chasing their 4th cup in 5 years. Fuhr had played 75 regular season games where he won the Vezina Trophy and would play 19 more in the playoffs. The narrative of a warrior goaltender playing through pain was far more appealing than the alternative. So that's what got printed. The pattern building in plain sight. Beat writers in Edmonton documented erratic behavior at practices throughout the mid-1980s. Teammates noticed mood swings and unexplained absences. Fuhr showed up late to team meetings with enough frequency that it became a pattern rather than an exception. His weight fluctuated significantly between seasons in ways that didn't align with training or injury recovery. Performance inconsistencies appeared that had no correlation to the shoulder problems or other physical issues listed on official reports. Everyone around the team saw fragments of something wrong. Nobody assembled the pieces publicly. Years later, another confrontation. There was a second meeting in Sather's office, this time involving Canadian police. Fuhr broke down in tears. Still, nothing changed. The whispers stayed whispers. Management had enough information to act, but chose observation over intervention. Why nothing happened? The NHL's system. The NHL's approach to substance issues in the 1980s was hands-off by design. The league had established a drug policy in 1978 based on suspending players caught using, but there was no systematic testing, no mandatory screenings, and no proactive support structure. Testing was voluntary and rarely enforced. Players only faced consequences after public incidents or arrests forced the league's hand. Translation: as long as you didn't get arrested, the league didn't care. This wasn't an accident. This was the system working exactly as intended. The institutional calculation. The Oilers were the NHL's marquee franchise, the league's answer to basketball's Lakers or baseball's Yankees. Wayne Gretzky was the most famous hockey player on earth. The idea that this team, this collection of future Hall of Famers, could have a serious substance problem didn't fit what the league wanted to protect. In the same 1986 documentary where Sather defended his team, he said he was absolutely positive that there can't be a guy that plays professional hockey and has a serious problem. He said this while managing a team where multiple players were struggling. The league backed every word. This wasn't just about Fuhr keeping a secret. This was about an organization that had the information and chose comfort over action. This was about a league that built a system designed to avoid inconvenient truths. And in 1989, someone finally tried to break the pattern. In 1989, an assistant coach with the Oilers approached Fuhr privately about getting help. The conversation happened away from the locker room, away from management's immediate view. Fuhr deflected, insisting he was handling things on his own. The coach reported the interaction up the chain. Management faced a decision: intervene immediately or wait until after the playoffs. They chose to wait. The Oilers had a team psychologist on staff, someone specifically employed to handle situations exactly like this. That person was never brought into the conversation. The calculation was straightforward. Treatment meant time away from the team. Time away meant disrupting the goaltending rotation. Fuhr was playing at an elite level despite everything happening off the ice. Management decided the risk of intervention outweighed the risk of waiting. The phrase used internally was, "We'll deal with it in the summer." Summer arrived, nothing happened. Training camp opened for the 1989-90 season without any formal intervention, without any treatment plan, without any acknowledgement at all that the previous spring's concerns still existed. That season, Fuhr was limited to just 21 games due to an appendectomy and shoulder surgery, but the substance issue remained unaddressed. The Oilers won their 5th Stanley Cup in May 1990. Fuhr didn't play in those playoffs due to injury, but he was still part of the championship team. Another ring, another summer, another opportunity to act that the organization let pass. The NHL's role in this extended silence went beyond ignoring one player on one team. League offices were aware of multiple substance problems across different franchises throughout the 1980s. The policy remained unchanged. Suspensions only came after public incidents or arrests forced action. Stars were not tested unless circumstances made it unavoidable. The league's priority was clear: protect the image, preserve the narrative, don't create problems that didn't need to exist publicly. In August 1989, Fuhr's agent, Rich Winter, urged him to take a private test. The results came back positive. Winter pushed Fuhr to enter treatment. Fuhr spent 2 weeks at the Strait Center in St. Petersburg, Florida that summer. He received help, but it happened quietly, outside any official NHL framework, without the league's involvement or knowledge. Fuhr stayed clean a full year after leaving that facility. Sather later confirmed that Fuhr tested negative 3 times during the year leading up to his eventual suspension. The problem had been addressed privately. The league never knew because nobody told them. Then, someone forced their hands. On August 31st, 1990, the Edmonton Journal published a story. Fuhr admitted to using substances from 1983 or 1984 through the summer of 1989. His ex-wife Corinne provided details about finding hidden stashes in their home, about drug dealers calling their house, threatening violence over unpaid debts, about watching him use in public places where anyone could see. She had tried everything privately. She had watched him lie to coaches, to teammates, to her. She had dealt with dealers showing up at their door, with threatening phone calls, with the constant fear that something worse was coming. Going public wasn't revenge. It was the last option left when private intervention failed for years. Teammate Esa Tikkanen confirmed to reporters that he witnessed a dealer toss Fuhr a bag in a bar. The story included enough corroborated detail that denial became impossible. Ziegler announced an investigation on September 1st. A hearing was scheduled for September 26th. On September 27th, Ziegler suspended Fuhr for 1 year without pay, which was later reduced to 59 games. The suspension came 13 months after Fuhr had already gotten clean. It came only because a newspaper forced the issue into public view. Craig McTavish, Fuhr's teammate, said it plainly after the ruling. I mean, really, what was Grant guilty of? He was guilty of having a problem, and he was trying to remedy that problem. If that's a cause for suspension, what kind of message does that send to the rest of the league? If you've got a problem, don't seek help, just continue to do it quietly, and you'll be able to play hockey. The NHL didn't fail to help. They built a system designed to avoid helping until silence became impossible. Fuhr returned on February 18, 1991 after serving 59 games of his suspension. His first game back was a shutout against the New Jersey Devils. He finished that partial season with respectable numbers, proving the time away had not diminished his abilities. The Oilers traded him to Toronto in a 7-player deal at the end of the season. The NHL's response to his successful return was to move on quickly. No systemic changes followed. No new protocols emerged. The league treated the suspension as the end of the story, rather than evidence of a larger problem that needed addressing. The real test came 5 years later. Fuhr signed with the St. Louis Blues as a free agent in July 1995 at age 33, widely considered past his prime. He showed up to training camp overweight. Head coach Mike Keenan suspended him before camp even began in earnest.
I was disappointed in him. I felt that he'd been given a real opportunity and that we expected him to come in very good condition, if not top condition.
Instead of accepting the end, Fuhr hired a fitness trainer and got himself into playing shape.
When I saw him physically, I said, yeah, this guy's obviously overweight. And when I watched him practice at Vail, being overweight, not being able to move. I mean, at that time, I didn't think he could stop a beach ball.
He started the Blues' first game of the 1995-96 season and then didn't stop. He started 76 consecutive games before a strained knee ended the streak in early April. He returned to play 3 more games, finishing with 79 total appearances. Both numbers remain NHL records. No goaltender has come remotely close to either mark since. The performance proved something the league didn't want to acknowledge. If Fuhr could play 76 straight games at age 33 after years of wear and a full season suspension, imagine what proper support during his peak years might have produced. What actually changed? In 1996, the NHL and NHLPA finally implemented the Substance Abuse and Behavioral Health Program, a confidential system where players could seek help voluntarily without informing the league or the union. Players in the program continued receiving their full salaries and could often keep playing while in treatments. The program represented progress, but it arrived 6 years after Fuhr's suspension and more than a decade after the warning signs started appearing in Edmonton. Testing remained voluntary. Consequences for use stayed unclear. The pattern continued. Reactive punishment rather than proactive support. McTavish's warning had been correct. The league learned just enough to avoid the next public scandal, not enough to actually protect players before problems became crises. The honors they eventually gave him. On November 2, 2003, Fuhr was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, becoming the first black player to receive that honor. His induction speech acknowledged his past struggles without naming the people who could have intervened earlier. By 2003, when they finally put his name in the Hall, the league had moved on. But the system that failed him, that took longer to change. Glenn Sather, the general manager who confronted Fuhr in 1983 and chose to wait rather than act, was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1997 as a builder. The dynasty he constructed remains celebrated as one of hockey's greatest achievements. The Oilers' 5 championships between 1984 and 1990 are a historical fact. So is the institutional failure that happened alongside them. Fuhr survived his career and got help eventually, but the system didn't save him. A newspaper did. The NHL's greatest shame wasn't that one player struggled. It was that everyone who could have helped knew enough to act and chose to wait until the problem became too public to ignore. They knew. They looked away. And they called it protecting hockey. If you want more stories the league doesn't want told, hit subscribe. Skates and Scars doesn't protect reputations. We protect the truth.